screamlouder.info. I'm hoping this works. God damn it, I'm fucking praying this works. It hasn't the last 100 times, but maybe this will be the one that gets a response. I don't know how many more places I can post this. I feel like there's nowhere left to shout my message. According to this computer, nobody has responded on any other site I visit. Not just to me, but to anything. Nothing ever gets updated, and I don't see any new statuses on Facebook, and I'm starting to wonder if this computer is even connected to anything at all. If this does work, here's the first thing I need anyone who sees this to read. Find me, please. I can't really help you with this because there's nobody around to tell me where I am, but please try anyway. I haven't seen anyone since I got here, and I haven't found any other ways to make contact. The phones are broken, the radios are weird. I happened to find this computer a few days ago, and it seems like my only chance of getting out of this place. Sadly, I can't give you so much as a hint to the name of this place. I haven't found any signs that say anything about a location. I'd tell you my name if that could help, but first I need a response. I need to make sure I can trust whoever's on the other end. I hope you can understand. Maybe a backstory isn't enough for now. I'll start with the last thing I remember before waking up here. I was excitedly preparing for a month-long vacation from work to a pretty nice resort spot in Jamaica. I had a bunch of unused PTO, I was knee-deep in code work at the time, and I figured I needed a break. Hell, my coworkers were begging me to take time off. Apparently I looked exceptionally tired. As a web developer working for at least 30 different clients from a particularly small web firm, I'd have to agree with them. Their work was indeed exhausting. There's nothing too interesting about all this, but it's what led to the following events. I'm not sparing any detail. I can't afford to, you know. I had just finished packing my car and my neighbors were ready to start collecting my mail. I was just about to head to the airport for my much needed R&R when I remembered I wanted to take a decongestant so my ears wouldn't pop on the plane. I headed to the tidy kitchen in my lonely little house in the suburbs. Everything was spotless and as it should be, which gave me comfort knowing it would be this way on my return. It was nice knowing I could just leave everything for a while without worry. I needed a change of pace, at least that's how I felt back then. I grabbed the pill from my medicine cabinet. As a frequent allergy sufferer, I'd done this 100 times before, so I wasn't paying attention as I popped the pill and chased it with a glass of water. God, why wasn't I paying attention? I looked in the pill bottle as I was closing it, and I noticed the pills were the wrong color. What? They were supposed to be pink, but they were white. They had never been white. Someone had been in my house and switched the pills. Panic came over me instantly. I knew I had to act fast, but I was stuck in that moment where you don't know what comes first. My heart was racing as I made up my mind. After a few moments of jumbled thought, I finally ran into the sink and made myself throw up. But then my heart stopped racing, then the panic went away. I couldn't even reach up to my mouth to stick my finger down my throat. I closed my eyes and my face began to feel like cotton. My knees buckled and I collapsed. Moments before I blacked out entirely, I could feel something grabbing my legs and pulling me across the floor. I awoke with a pounding in my head, and the kind of dry throat where swallowing seems to make it worse. The fear returned as if I had just been in my kitchen minutes ago, but the change in my surroundings told me it must have been much longer. I was in a broken spring bed with quilted blankets. There were dusty knickknacks and old furniture scattered about the room, and the walls were made out of unfinished wood. It all reminded me of my grandparents' cabin in the forest back home. I creaked my aching bones out of the bed that was holding me. It felt like I hadn't moved in days. I made my way to the bedroom door, hoping to find a sink somewhere in this old place. I was so thirsty. Upon exiting, I had to catch myself by grabbing a hold of the door frame. This was on the second floor of the cabin that had been torn in half. The staircase and wall were in front of me, completely gone, leaving a giant opening to the world outside. Everything else was in shambles. It looked like a tornado must have just hit there. I gazed at the horizon. I was at the top of a small hill surrounded by thick forest. There were tall mountains on all sides of this tiny valley, trapped in the forest like a prison cell. At the bottom of the hill, following a clean paved road, was a town. Early on, I was reassured by the sight of civilization. I jumped down from the crumbling hallway onto the couch covered in cabin debris. The small bits of good news I found here was a sink at the back of the kitchen directly behind the couch, now completely exposed by the lack of the separating walls. The rusty faucet knob creaked as I turned it. I expected cool mountain water, but instead a thick black sludge came oozing out. Useless. Instead of wasting my strength here, it was time I headed down to the town below in search of water and hopefully an idea of where I was. After escaping the wreckage, it was nice to find a solid footing, even if it was unfamiliar ground. The walk down the road was almost pleasant, if not a little eerie. It was quiet, absurdly quiet. The leaves didn't even rustle. There wasn't an animal in sight to make chirps or squeaks. The clouds were dark and heavy, but there was no rain, no wind. There was no change. Everything seemed stagnant. There was a gas station at the top edge of town along my descent. A sign across the entrance said "Shop quickly," which puzzled me, but I was far more distracted by what I realized next. There was nobody filling up cars parked by the fuel stations. There was nobody inside buying sodas or cigarettes. I walked up to the window of the station and there wasn't even anyone manning the register. The door was unlocked. "Hello?" I shouted as I grabbed some snacks and drinks from the shelves. I met with no response, so I left some money on the counter and made a swift exit. Oh right, I used money from my wallet. This led me to realize my captor had left me with my wallet, ID, credit cards, and everything else I had on my person. What was going on here? What did they want from me? The bottle of water was stale, but it felt good on my throat. I kept walking into town as I munched on some nearly expired potato chips. The buildings around me were old and poorly kept, full of broken windows and dented street signs. Street lamps had toppled over and cars were crashed into each other everywhere. Perhaps it was from the storm that destroyed the cabin on the hill. Maybe it was something else. I wouldn't know until I found someone with answers. Yet there was no one to find. Everywhere I looked was empty. I thought I saw a shadow of someone in a window once, but when I looked back, they were gone. Later I thought I saw someone again, but it was just a mannequin in a shop display. Its head was missing, and in its place was the same black sludge from the faucet earlier, dripping slowly down its neck. The more I looked, the more I noticed this sludge on random things across town. It was wiped on signs and billboards, fire hydrants, countertops, and registers in shops, and an old phone box on a street corner. A phone box? That meant a payphone. Here was a chance to finally call someone. I wish I'd remembered to put my cell phone in my pocket before the kidnapping, but I was too panicked to remember. This was just as good though, or at least I thought at the time. I put the coin in the slot and waited for a tone. Now, remember how I said the phones were broken? Well, broken isn't exactly the word. Something much stranger was happening. It's one of several reasons why I wanted to leave this place immediately. There was a dial tone after the coin had fallen into place, but I hadn't pressed any of the numbers. There was a sound of connecting to the other line, and everything after that I could hear. I could hardly explain. but I'll try. I was only listening with one ear, but the sound was somehow binaural. It was all around me, like surround sound, but the quality was still that of an old payphone, which was a new and chilling sensation. I heard loud wind and thunder, windows crashing and muffled people screaming as they ran by. I instinctively darted around, trying to avoid the sounds like they were real. I was afraid of something was going to break through the glass box I was in. There was the sound of a car running into a broken street lamp in front of me, and I heard the metal bending as if it was falling over for the first time. Suddenly, just as I started, everything stopped, and I was left with the buzzing of the sound of silence. The air around me felt electrified and hot. After a moment of reprieve, I heard the thing behind me, that moaning. I'll never forget the sound. I could almost feel its vibrations on the back of my neck. I slammed the receiver down and closed the payphone door behind me. I wasn't going to use another phone in this town as long as I was trapped here. I hurried down the street in front of me. Then I passed down another, and another, and another. It was all the same. There was nothing. There was no one. All the exits from this town led to a dense forest followed by mountains that I couldn't possibly climb without gear. I was trapped here with nobody around me to help. I broke down and cried, pathetically, and without restraint. Why was this happening to me? What had I done to deserve this? If they didn't want my money, what did they want from me? Then I heard it. Through my sobs, a voice was talking in one of the buildings. Finally, someone to talk to. There was someone here that could help me. I dashed inside the building where the sound was coming from. It looked to be an old radio station. There were big bold letters spelling out RMR behind the secretary's desk. The front door was removed from its hinges and missing, along with all the other doors inside. I could hear a man speaking casually to someone else on one of the floors upstairs. I was so relieved I ran up the stairs like a child on Christmas morning, careful to avoid the chunks of concrete that had fallen from the ceiling. It was once I reached the 6th floor that I knew I was close to the source. I walked past the open rooms until I saw where the sound was coming from. In the 3rd room from the left to the stairs was a station control room. There was an old record spinning on a vintage record player next to the dusty microphone above the station controls. The record was making that snapping, crinkling sound that old records do. The man speaking on the record must have been a disc jockey from an old 50s radio show. I had caught him in the middle of a news bulletin as I walked into the room. "Here's a word from the bird. Looks like a storm tonight and it's going to be a doozy. To all you paper shakers and big daddies playing backseat bingo out in the passion pit, don't be a wet rag and get yourselves home. Here's a little something to help you lay a patch. Play that number, Susie." Just as he finished his sentence, the record cut to the most shrill, high-pitched sound I've ever heard. It was so loud it sounded like it was coming from inside my head. Then it switched over to radio static mix, with a gurgling sound like someone was shouting underwater. The sound hurt me to my core. I could feel it inside me invading my brain. I grabbed the record player and threw it against the wall and watched it smash into a dozen pieces. What the fuck was happening here? I felt like I was losing my mind. I flipped the radio controls, hoping to reach someone. "Is anyone there? Can you read me? Hello? Hello?" I must have flipped every switch in there, but it was no use. There was no response, nothing. Then there was a knock. It came from outside the hall. After the phone and the radio, I became suspicious of pursuing any more sounds. But what choice did I have? If I waited here in this town long enough, I would die. The food would expire, I would run out of clean water, and that would be it. I didn't have the luxury of hiding away, and I certainly wouldn't have made it in the forest. I wish I'd paid more attention in Boy Scouts. Another knock. I was terrified. but I slowly inched myself out into the hall. I went past 3 more open rooms and found the source. This was the only room in the whole building that had a door. Next to it was a small desk and a drawer. The knocking continued. "Is there anyone there?" There was another knock. "Hold on, I'm going to open the door." I jiggled the handle, no good. It was locked. I shifted to the table and I opened the drawer. As I expected, there was a key. Actually, there were 6 keys. I wondered what the other 5 were for. I grabbed the first one and slid the key into place. There was a click and the door unlocked. "Okay, I'm coming in," I said with a shaky voice. I opened the door and there was another knock. In front of me was another door. Now I understood what the other keys were for. Whatever was behind this door needed to be hidden. It needed to be kept restrained. So much so that one door wouldn't be enough. I was trembling as I reached for another key. I knew it was stupid, but I didn't know what else to do. Whatever brought me here to this town couldn't be behind this door. You can't lock it from the inside. That means it's still out here, so I'm just as in much danger. I unlocked another door. Another knock. The knocks were getting louder. Whatever it was seemed to be growing impatient. I reached for another key and unlocked another door. "Please stop knocking, I'm going to be opening the doors, okay? I'm coming in." But it continued. I unlocked another door and the knocking stopped. But now it was slamming itself into the door with full force. Boom, I could almost hear the door cracking on the other side. I didn't know if I should continue at this point because the thing inside was getting aggressive. But then again, maybe they just needed help like me. Maybe if we could work together, we might be able to get out of here. I caved and let myself unlock another door. Bang, it slammed again. Then there was just one key. One more door. The booming was so rapid, the door looked as if it was breathing each time the thing rammed into it. I was so scared, but I wasn't going to give up. Boom, another crash into the door. Curiosity was taken over. I had to know what was waiting on the other side. Bang, another slam against the wood. I grabbed the key from the drawer and slowly clicked it into place. The banging stopped. The knocking stopped. It was silent. I slowly turned the metal handle with no idea what might be on the other side. Whatever it was, it needed 6 doors to be contained. There isn't a thing alive that needs that much restraint. My brain was screaming at me to turn around and leave, but I'd already committed. I was about to see what was inside. I swung the door open. The room inside was caked in dust. There was black and white checkered tile flooring and no windows to be seen. Above were fluorescent lights that flickered, struggling to stay lit. It looked like nobody had stepped in there for years. I was tense and proceeded cautiously. There was nobody inside. There was nothing here. No tables, no chairs, completely empty. I started to sigh in relief and when I heard something. It was a whir of a computer turning on. In the center of this otherwise empty room was an old beige computer. It booted up with the classic Windows 95 sound, although very off-key, like the internal sound card was broken far beyond repair. I was still pretty terrified, but at least now I had a computer, albeit an old one. I saw an internet cable running out the back. The monitor was functional, things were looking up a little. I sat down in front of it. I really wished I had been on a desk, but it was just sitting alone in the middle of this dusty floor. That might explain why the sound was off and the colors were wonky. The dust had probably been getting into all the circuits over the years. I was lucky it even booted up. It loaded the Windows 95 user interface with only one icon on the desktop. No My Computer, no recycling bin, just Netscape Navigator directly in the center of the screen. I double clicked it and the dial-up window appeared, but instead of boxes for my information or a place to put the IP address. It just had a single button that said connect. It was weird that the button had a question mark. It was almost as if it was asking me a question instead of giving me an option. I clicked and waited. Suddenly the old dial-up tone started, but it sounded completely wrong. Later I managed to search YouTube from this computer so I could provide you with an example of what it sounded like, because if you hear it, you'll understand why it doesn't seem like it was just a broken sound card. You'll know why I'm so afraid and why I want to be found. Trust me though, what you're about to hear isn't as nearly as terrifying as what I heard. It's just the closest I could find. Dial-up sound. It's been a few days now since finding the computer. Nothing too strange has really happened since then. I keep finding more black sludge around the town as I've been exploring people's homes for food and water. The sludge seems to appear most commonly on the front doors of homes, but also on many of the beds where I assume people slept. I moved the mattress that didn't have any sludge into this computer room so I could be nearby in case I get any replies. I'm still not sure if I'm connected, but I seem to have access to everything on the internet, so we'll wait and see. So if anyone is out there and you're able to read this, please let me know. I'm screaming across the web for help because I'm very scared and very lonely. The clouds outside are getting darker every day and I still don't know where the person who took me here is, or what was the knocking on those doors. If anything new happens, or if I come across anything on this computer, I'll be sure to post an update. Bye for now.